va?
Monsieur Fraser, comment allez-vous? I got a quick question for you about a specific case, and I think you've heard about it before. Let me get the name straight, if you may. Farzana Adel Gadiana. She's an Afghan woman that is fighting for a women's right. She's asked for asylum in Canada, and her demand has been refused, and now she's being told that it's going to take 29 months to get the possibility to come into Canada. However, she is somewhere else where she's going to lose her visa, and she's going to be sent back to Afghanistan. So what can you tell me about this specific case, and why is it taking so long to admit someone under the specific program that's supposed to help Afghan people?
So one of the things that you'll appreciate, we are not at liberty to comment on individual case files, but I think one of the things that people have to appreciate is when you want to take part in the special programs that we've set up for refugee resettlement from Afghanistan, there's specific pathways that we've set up that we encourage people to come through, whether it's the person who's expressed interest to come through them, the sponsorship groups that are working with them, or the referral partners that identify people based on vulnerability to put them into the system. The system doesn't work with me hand-picking individuals whose I've become aware of to come into the program. We set up a process to do what we can to ensure that we have a process to identify people based on vulnerability, but it's really important that people and their advocates who want to take part in the program that we've set up and not
There's
other
also the
immigration streams.
possibility by a minister to, for an emergency purposes, go for an exception. Fighting for women's right in Afghanistan. Isn't it a place where we should actually use ministerial discretion?
So we actually set up a specific stream for women leaders who've been fighting to defend human rights from Afghanistan. It's really important that the people who are coming through refugee streams apply through the refugee streams that we've set up and not other programs.
But when the delay is 29 months, and the person in another country is going to be sent away from that country, I mean, the delay is something that you have a control over.
So, there's a specific issue that I think you're hitting on, and the delay for that you're speaking about on sort of processing times that are coming through some streams are not the same for people who apply through the official process that we've established. It might be best just to, if you want specific details that we are able to share, I really hesitate to dig in on individual cases. We're bound not to discuss, for privacy reasons, individual case files and the details that may affect
Minister, I want to talk about the immigration targets, which would reach half a million. In Canada, we build about less than 300,000 housing units per year. So a lot of people are saying, hey, we don't have enough space to house those people. We're going to amplify the housing crisis. What do you respond to that?
This is a really important question. So the starting point for me is that the cost of not welcoming newcomers at ambitious levels is extraordinary to the Canadian economy. We're dealing with a situation where we've had one of the strongest economic recoveries of any country in the world from the COVID-19 pandemic, but we've still had a million jobs available earlier this year, despite the fact we were at the lowest rate of unemployment. We need to bring workers here, not just to address the short-term labor needs of the market, but the long-term skills gap for the next generation. We also have a really challenging demographic problem in Canada. 50 years ago, we had 7 workers for every retiree. 10 or 15 years from now, we're going to have 2. We're not going to be talking about labor shortages 10 or 15 years from now if we don't correct this imbalance. We're going to be talking about whether we can afford to pay for schools or hospitals. So we need to look at the counterfactual as well. But on housing, this is actually one of the most important aspects of the immigration levels plan that we tabled just the other day. We have new flexibilities in the express entry system that are going to kick in 2023 that will allow us to bring the workers here to meet the needs of the sectors that have the greatest need. We spoke during the announcement yesterday about the need to bring in skilled workers specifically to welcome people who can help build more housing stock across Canada. But in addition, there was a major focus in this immigration levels plan to push people to communities that have the absorptive capacity to welcome them, including housing.
But there's a housing crisis everywhere, and there's a target, I think a federal target, to reach 400,000 units per year, and everybody's saying we don't have the labor for that. We will not be able to build as much housing. So are we not welcoming people who will just amplify the current crisis?
So just let me complete the answer, because we will be bringing in more workers that will help build houses specifically. but we're also going to leverage additional spaces in the Atlantic Immigration Program where there is more capacity to house people. We're going to be increasing the spaces in the provincial nominee program so provinces can select candidates who are going to communities that have more capacity. We've expanded over the course of the summer the rural and northern immigration pilot, and the flexibilities that I mentioned in Express Entry don't just allow us to bring workers based on sector, but based on the region in Canada where they are destined to. We're taking a thoughtful approach to making sure that we're welcoming people here who are going to communities that have capacity, or in fact welcoming people as permanent residents who are already here and have housing that will not further exacerbate a very real challenge that the housing sector is facing in Canada.
What's your reaction or interpretation of Minister Fréchette's reaction to the immigration levels announced yesterday? She says, basically, she tweeted that, well, the right level is 50,000 for Quebec, so she's saying like our position is the same no matter what the federal government does. So how do you interpret that?
Québec a le pouvoir dans la Cour de Canada-Québec pour faire cette décision. Le niveau d'immigration dans la province de Québec est une décision pour la province de Québec. J'ai l'habilité pour mettre le niveau pour tout notre pays hors Québec. C'est essentiel, selon moi, de continuer d'augmenter le nombre de nouveaux arrivants en général et les nombres de nouveaux arrivants francophones. Mais la décision pour les niveaux d'immigration au Québec, c'est une décision pour le gouvernement du Québec.
Mais est-ce que vous ne placez pas le Québec dans une décision un peu impossible où il doit choisir entre son poids politique, son poids démographique à l'intérieur du Canada et son seuil d'immigration auquel il tient?
C'est essentiel pour moi de faire la décision et plus bien pour tous les pays. C'est essentiel, selon moi, d'accueillir beaucoup de nouveaux arrivants pour améliorer la pénurie de main-d'œuvre, pour améliorer les problèmes démographiques, comme la réponse juste maintenant. Mais la décision pour les vrais nombres pour la province de Québec, c'est un pouvoir de la province dans l'accord avec Canada-Québec. Mais c'est essentiel pour moi de faire des décisions pour servir les besoins de tout le Canada.
Juste une précision, les 500 000, c'est pour l'extérieur du Québec et le 50 000, c'est Québec seulement.
OK, oui, et le table dans le plan inclut les détails sur cet enjeu, mais j'ai besoin de sortir, mais si vous avez des questions après, que c'est possible pour clarifier.
Félicitations pour votre français.
OK, merci, j'ai travaillé fort.
C'est la cible nationale parce que les provinces pognent la part. Tu me fais peur, je sais pas, tu parlais à part. Il a dit quelque chose, il dit prends des Français.
Madame Portier. Vraiment, avec 500 000 immigrants en 2025, c'est pas beaucoup trop pour le français au Canada. Ça va pas tuer le français au Canada, sachant qu'on n'est pas capable d'accueillir assez d'immigrants francophones.
Mais on est en train de travailler sur une stratégie d'immigration francophone, donc on va mettre l'accent sur la stratégie.
Ça fait 20 ans que ça marche pas. Qu'est-ce qui va changer aujourd'hui?
Je dirais qu'on continue à travailler sur une stratégie d'immigration francophone, puis je sais que le ministre Fraser est en train de trouver d'autres façons pour accueillir davantage.
Fait que 500 000, c'est pas trop. Ça va être correct pour le français, vous dites, ça va aller bien.
Moi, je pense que ça va complémenter le fait que, premièrement, on a besoin de plus d'immigrants et de nouveaux arrivants qui viennent au pays, puis on devrait mettre l'accent sur plus de francophones. Merci.
No.
And does that concern you? Like, do you think that you guys should have known that he was about to sort of deploy this political bomb?
The Government of Canada is not normally involved in legislation presented in a legislature or a province. They're responsible for their own decisions, but we certainly weren't consulted before he did this, of course.
What do you...
What do you do about the notwithstanding what's specific?
Well, I said I'm not going to discuss options here. It is, as I said yesterday, the preemptive use of the notwithstanding clause is very serious and even anti-democratic. Remember that the structure of the charter is the substantive rights, the balancing clause in Section 1, and only then do you go to Section 33. It was meant to be a last word for a legislature to exercise parliamentary sovereignty. If it's used at the beginning, it guts Canadian democracy and means the charter doesn't exist.
Discuss the options that you have. People seem to suggest that you don't actually have any way to deal with it.
I have. There are a number of different things one might do, but I'm not going to discuss my options publicly.
What's the government's position going to be on the Arrive Canada vote today?
Oh, well, that's the whip. So I refer you to the whip on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'll find the whip.
I think we're all reflecting on the best way to communicate with one another. We're in a very difficult time. I want to be able to communicate with my constituents. I want to be able to have meaningful dialogue with them. I think we all acknowledge that the quality of that discourse isn't what we would want it to be. So I'm in a period of reflection on that, and I want to, I have town halls regularly. I look forward to talking to my constituents. I think we have to think about how we meaningfully and appropriately communicate with one another and what are the appropriate forums for that. So I think we're all in a state of kind of reviewing our choices on that.
But what's left to review, though? I mean, you just last week were talking about the need for a more human approach, and perhaps there's a growing consensus that social media is not a human approach. It is not seeing people for who they are. It's silos. It's all sorts of things. So why stay on it? Why do you see the value of engaging in that environment?
Well, let me be clear. I'm not on social media. I don't use it in any way. But I do, with my team, use it as a way to convey information. And one of the things that I am worried about is that if we completely abdicate our responsibility to communicate in those forums, then people won't hear any reasonable voices. If the only people left in there are people who are yelling and screaming at each other in overheated rhetoric that is disconnected from reality, that isn't good either. So it leaves us in a very challenged position. I think as a society, we're trying to figure out how to have these conversations and how to make sure reasonable voices are still present.
Monsieur Trudeau, le poids du français. Is it time for frugalness? Sorry? Is it time for frugalness ahead of the fall economic statement? Is it time for the government to kind of rein in spending?
Well, it's a time to support Canadians. I mean, we have all seen the price of milk, the price of bread, the price of energy. It's a time to help Canadians. That's why you've seen on a number of occasions we've been pushing to lower prices. You've seen me when it comes, for example, to cell phone prices in the Shaw Rogers proposed transaction. The same thing when it comes to grocery. And since you asked me the question, everyone needs to do their part. I did call the CEO of a number of food chain across the country. But the issue is broader than that. I mean, we've seen a number of companies. You may have seen the New York Times talking about Pepsi, about Nestle. I think about Colgate-Palmolive, if my memory serves me well, increasing prices and seeing record profits at a time where families are finding it difficult to buy groceries. So my message has been very clear, and I'm bringing that message internationally. Everyone needs to do their part to help consumers at a time where we see rising inflation, and we know that the price of energy and food is what people care about much.
Est-ce qu'il faut s'attendre à des coupures, Monsieur Champagne, demain? Est-ce qu'il faut s'attendre à ce que le gouvernement serre la ceinture, là?
Ben, écoutez, c'est sûr qu'on est dans une période économique où la prudence est de mise, je pense. Mais la ministre des Finances, évidemment, en aura plus à dire demain. Moi, ce que je pense que vous avez vu, puis vraiment ce qui anime les débats parlementaires présentement et certainement notre gouvernement, c'est comment on peut aider les gens. T'sais, on l'a vu, le prix du lait, le prix du beurre, le prix de l'essence, tout coûte plus cher. Et c'est ça touche chacune des familles à travers le pays. Alors, tout ce qu'on a en tête, moi j'ai essayé de le faire dans le domaine de l'alimentation, on a essayé de le faire évidemment dans le domaine des prix pour la téléphonie mobile. C'est toujours d'essayer de trouver des moyens dans la mesure de ce qu'on peut faire pour faire baisser les prix. Évidemment, on sait que l'inflation, il y a un phénomène mondial. Je l'ai dit qu'on a vu des compagnies comme Pepsi, par exemple, augmenter leurs prix.
Les attentes, là.
Non, moi je vous dis ce qui nous anime. C'est clair. Vous savez, la réalité d'ici, comme vous l'avez vu depuis plusieurs mois, tout ce qu'on parle, c'est d'abordabilité. Mais c'est l'enjeu ici, vous l'avez vu aussi en Europe, on parle des paniers d'épicerie, on compare entre les différents pays. C'est ça qui m'a animé quand j'ai appelé les présidents des différentes chaînes d'approvisionnement au pays. C'était de voir un peu les exemples à travers le monde, en disant comment on peut aider les gens. Je pense que le message aujourd'hui, c'est qu'on veut aider les gens, on comprend comment c'est difficile, et on le voit dans toutes nos communautés, comment les familles, soit ça soit le prix de l'énergie, le prix de l'alimentation, c'est ce qui préoccupe les gens aujourd'hui.
Can we expect anything to move the battery manufacturing forward tomorrow in the economic statement?
Well, you know, I'm excited. When you talk about battery, you get me going. You know,
That's why I asked.
I could go on and on and on and on. You'll see. I'll be in Germany now. You know, we're on our way soon. Well, first I'll be
Let's start with tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Hey, listen, I'm already thinking about next month.
Yes,
you know,
but we're
you're in
thinking
tomorrow.
about tomorrow.
Hey, listen, that's coming for the Minister of Finance to say, but one thing that we say, we will remain competitive. We know that for me, the Inflation Reduction Act in the United States and the CHIPS Act is a catalyst for us to do more. When I was in Washington with my counterpart, it was all about resiliency. You know, these two acts basically call upon us to be more resilient. And I was saying to my American counterparts, it's in their own best interest that both Canada and the U.S. remain competitive at a time like that, because they need critical mineral, we need renewable energy, we need access to markets. So working together at a time where you see generational opportunities. This is really something we've not seen in 30 years and probably won't see for another 30 years. And you can bet on me that I'll make sure that we land these plants in Canada, because we have in a few months, I think, change the course. And not only tomorrow, but you have to think I'll be talking to the board of Volkswagen, the board of Mercedes-Benz later on this month. We have made significant progress in just a few months, and I'll be in Korea and Japan to repeat that message again, that we have the talent, we have the ecosystem, we have the critical mineral.
But will tomorrow we get some more money?
Listen, if I tell you everything today, will you be there tomorrow? That's the question. So with that, I'll wish you a very good day. I'll see you tomorrow.
Let me ask you a quick question. Is now the time for the government to be making cuts? Fall economic statement's happening tomorrow. Is now the time to be making cuts, you think?
Well, I think it's important for us to be careful with people's money and making sure that we're delivering good services and the most effective way possible.
And so, is that cuts? Is that more spending? Is that a review of government spending?
I'm sort of a balanced guy, so as long as there's a good balance of all the things and we're delivering the programs that we need to do, if that means some cuts in some places and some expenses in others, that works for me.
We're going to see the fall economic statement happening tomorrow. Is it time for more government austerity and more, you know, conservative, well, not conservative approach, but you know what I mean. Like, you know, small c conservative without budgets.
It's lovely to see you on the eve of the fall economic statement. Obviously, I'm not going to scoop the Minister of Finance, but it is a fall economic statement that will ensure fiscal responsibility, as you've seen over the course of the last budget. We have been extremely fiscally responsible, and we're planning on continuing on that track.
Okay, thank you.
If the economic statement's coming tomorrow, you were having for a long time. Yeah. What do you think of the fiscal framework and the fiscal, ideas that the government's taken so far?
It's always a balancing act. You have to look at what's affordable and what's pressing. And Minister Freeland has always shown a sensitivity to where the sweet spot is, and I expect that's what we'll find out in the fall economic statement.
What do you think is pressing?
Well, affordability. People are feeling the hit, and they want to know what government can do, and they also want to know what the opposition party is suggesting. So in the response to the Fez, I hope we can get involved in a very important debate about which road to take. And I'm a Liberal. I believe that the centre road is the right road to take.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Sir, is it time for austerity, ahead of... Are you thinking more austerity when you think ahead of the fall economic statement that's happening tomorrow? Is it time for the government to rein in spending, you think? Would you mind just positioning yourself to the camera?
Is it time to rein in spending? That kind of presupposes spending had gone wild before, which I don't think is the case. I think a lot of the spending recently has been a result of COVID and trying to stimulate the economy. So I don't think it's so much a matter of reining it in. But times are changing. I think there's more of an opportunity to be frugal now.
More of an opportunity to be frugal. What about with interest rates expected to go up? We're going to be paying more on that debt.
More of a reason to be frugal.
So it's more of a reason. Sorry, just
more of a reason to be frugal.
Okay.
Because any debt we incur is going to grow, right? So.